selling it. Rarely do I buy something and sell it. I usually look forever, buy something, and I keep it forever. This was one of those ones. It was another gyro one, but it was a 4.5 inch deep, and it just wasn't that great. It was beaten up by a guy on, I think the old drummer from Guttermouth had it or something, and he didn't take very good care of it. And so I brought it in there, and they're like, "Oh, we'll give you, $500 or $600 for this," and they wanted $700 for that monokach snare. It was a 5.5 inch deep, 14, and it was like a black beauty with all this beautiful filigree, the whole side of the drum, really gorgeous with gold plated hoops, and it was really classy looking. And I remember my singer Eric saying, "Dude, there's always $100. There's always $100 to be found." And I just remember thinking, I'm like, not right now. And I didn't do it, and I remember calling like 2-3 days later and saying, like, "Do you still have that? I'll take it." And they're like, it was sold like a couple hours after you left. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
that was the one that got away. That thing sounded amazing.
Yeah.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah. There's a lot of those out there. Even as something as simple as a 70s Black Beauty, a real original 70s Black Beauty, or so. They're so hard to find now, and they're again so expensive. But would have been great to have gotten one back in the day and kept it in pristine shape. But that's one that would be great in the collection as well. I
got one that I like that I'll keep forever. I found a 71 Superphonic Super Sensitive, a 6.5 inch deep, and it was like the second owner, but he had bought it from a guy like 2 years, like in '73, and kept it in the studio the entire time. And it's the original fittings and plastic and everything. It was the original head on it until I got it. And I play it. I play all my drums. I'm not one to just like set them aside. It's nice to have some things that you can't replace. They're great like that.
Yep.
So how did you end in Newbury Park here?
When I came back to Guitar Center, I was living down in Redondo Beach, and I was working at a store in West LA. So it was a 15-mile commute. Wasn't that big a deal. It was on Santa Monica Boulevard. It was called West LA Music.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's right. I was reading or listening in the other interview. You switched and then came back.
Yeah, I was at West LA for 16 years, and then every year, after I'd been there for about 10 years, I still had a lot of friends at Guitar Center that I had worked with originally. So they started asking me to come back, and it took a good 5 or 6 years to find the right position that I was really interested in. I knew I didn't want to work in the stores because I was already doing that, and I was starting to, after working on the sales floor for what ended up being 21 years, I loved it. I loved, just like I said earlier, the feeling where you solve someone's problem, and especially with musical instruments, you're filling people's dreams. I've had so many people over the years that, as a kid came in, I sold them their first drum set or their first guitar, and then I saw them become famous, years later.
Any examples?
There's a girl named Hannah Ford, Hannah Welton now. She got married. But, she came in with her dad when she was 8 years old, and bought a drum set, and she went all the way up and was playing with Prince until he passed away. And so,
wow.
Yeah. And really like seeing that type of thing. And then, the other one is Eric Kretz, who's the drummer from Stone Temple Pilots. And the first time I dealt with him, he was so broke that, and they were rehearsing down in the South Bay, and he would come in the store all the time, and he'd beg me to give him a pair of drumsticks. He didn't have $1 in his pocket, and I felt bad for him, so I'd always give him like a pair of demo sticks that were already beat up. Just take them. And, he was in the store all the time, and then he just stopped coming in one day, and I thought, maybe he moved away or something. And it was like literally about a year and a half later, he comes walking in, and I'm like, "Eric, where you been?" And he had a different aura to him. And he goes, "I've been on tour." And I said, "On tour?" I said, your band was like rehearsing next door here. You couldn't even afford a pair of sticks. Who are you touring with? He goes, "I'm the drummer for Stone Temple Pilots." I was like, you got to be kidding me. You know?
Wow. So that must have been like 92?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Wow. That first Core album is still a favorite. I remember seeing them with the Butthole Surfers and the Melvins in like 93 or on the Core tour. Yeah. Wow. So
I love that kind of stuff, you know.
When he came back in, what was he like?
Oh, he came in he wanted to buy a bunch of stuff from me. He goes, I have money now.
That's
and
awesome.
he bought. I mean, he probably could have got it free, but he bought a bunch of stuff that some hardware and some cymbals and stuff. Probably more for his personal collection because he was endorsed at that point by Yamaha and Zildjian, or no, Paiste. But he picked up a few pieces and he came back, to thank me. The best story I have of that is one of my bosses recently, who got hired at Guitar Center, that's not a musician and came from the supermarket industry. We were at a meeting after a few months, and we were talking about the passion of playing music and how we fill people's dreams. And he made a statement that made him look kind of ridiculous, but in front of our whole executive team, he says there's just as much passion in buying a guitar as there is as buying a carton of eggs. And I said, okay, you're my boss. I'm not going to really, but it was just such a weird statement because that's the industry he came from. And
that seems so far removed.
Yeah, but he didn't understand, that kid that sits in front of a guitar wall and dreams that someday he's going to be touring the world versus someone sitting in front of the egg aisle and picking out a carton of eggs.
Yeah, didn't the guy ever have a Countach poster on his wall? I mean, come on, you got to understand the desirability of these things, right?
Well, it was about 3 months later, and we were playing golf with my friend who's the guitarist for Warrant, the band from the 80s. Mm-hmm. And he had this friend with him that I recognized, but I couldn't place it. I knew this person from somewhere, and my boss was with us. That was our foursome. And we were about third tee box, and this guy turns around. He goes, I don't know if you remember me. And I said, I recognize you. And he says, I'm so-and-so. He goes, when I was 8 years old, my dad brought me in your store, and I in my mind, I was going to be the next big, great guitar player, and I was going to tour the world, and I was going to be a famous musician. And he said, he goes, you spent all day with us picking out the right guitar. You were so awesome. And he goes, I still have that guitar to this day. And I've toured the world now 3 times with my band, and it's a punk band called Atreyu. And
I know them as Atreyu.
Oh, Atreyu. Yeah.
Okay.
And
wow,
but he's saying all this.
Great band. I would like Atreyu.
Yeah, and he's saying all this in front of my boss. But he said I just in some way I have to thank you because you started my dream.
Wow, that's awesome.
And he said because of you, in some little way, I'm now doing what I dreamt of doing for my life. And he turned around and walked away, and I looked at my boss, and I go, yeah, you don't get that with a carton of eggs.
Oh, that is so good. Wow.
And he's like, okay, I get it now. I get it.
You don't get that with a carton of eggs. Jeez, there's no...
yeah.
Wow.
So
that was perfect timing, my friend.
It was.
That
it really was.
Great.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow, I mean... And that's true. I mean, I remember when I bought my first Tama Iron Cobra professional pedal at this some music shop in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and like the pennies, like literally taking this jar of pennies and stuff like that and getting it all together to come up with the exact amount to get it, and going there. And I remember going to pay for it, and my dad saying like, well, what's the difference between this one and the Pro model? And they're like, well, it's a double chain, and it's a little bit sturdier build. It's a little bit more kind of can take the torque of playing and stuff like that. And it was like maybe $70 more, $50 more at the time or something like that. I remember my dad telling me, he's like, you save up the money for this one that you wanted to get. I'll throw in the rest for the Pro model. And
nice.
So I worked all summer, I was 10 or 11. I mowed grass all summer and came up with the money for that. And I remember getting that and how important that was,
Yeah. Well, so, what brought me to, up to this area was that the Guitar Center offices are up here. Mm-hmm. So I was commuting.
They're in Westlake, right?
Yeah.
Off Lindero?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at Lindera and Thousand Oaks Boulevard. But I was commuting from Redondo Beach every day up here, and it just, the first 7 years I had my boss actually at that time lived down in Palos Verdes, so he was even farther than I was.
Yeah.
And so we would carpool, which made it, at least you had someone to talk to, and you could drive in the car.
It's a pretty drive going through it.
Yeah, you could drive the carpool lane and stuff, but then he left Guitar Center and he went to, he's now at Roland. But all of a sudden I was making that commute by myself, and it was brutal. It was, minimum 4 hours a day out of your life, and sometimes 6 or 7, going both ways. And I was miserable, and I loved living at the beach. I'd been there 31 years, just loved that vibe down there. And I surf and I swim, and I use the beach a lot. So it was very hard to tear me away from that. But I also realized how much of my life I could have back if I wasn't sitting in a car for
Absolutely.
6 or 7 hours a day. So
At least we're not too far.
no, we're not.
20 minutes,
Yeah.
23 minutes,
Yeah.
and you're at Magoo.
Yep. Yeah. So it made sense, and but just to be safe, we moved up here and we rented a townhouse first, just in case I didn't like it.
Right.
In case I had to get back to the beach or something.
Lease to buy.
But yeah.
No, I'm
No, we
car
were,
model.
yeah, we were just doing a lease for 1 year, I think it was, and really liked it up here. I mean, the people are great. At that time we were right off of Moore Park and right by the golf course, the Los Robles golf course. There's a group of townhouses right there, and
Yep.
and my wife ended up getting a job right at the golf course, which was great.
Really?
Yeah.
I like that golf course.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm a player as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And so it worked out perfectly. She just walked to work every day, and I was a 5-minute drive to the office. And after about 2 years, we said, okay, yeah, let's go buy a house. Let's find a house. We like it here. We want to stay here. And we have a fantastic realtor that works in this area. That he also helped us with the rental, which I was very impressed with, because typically realtors aren't going to spend a lot of time helping you find a rental property. But he was smart. He was thinking more long term.
Yeah.
If they stay in the area, hopefully they'll use me to sell their house or buy their house.
Given your experience, I'm sure you have no problem picking up on the quality characteristics of a good salesman.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and he came highly recommended. He had sold like 8 or 9 people at Guitar Center their homes, so he just had a great reputation, and spent a lot of time, took us to a lot of different homes, and this one that we ended up at here in Newberry was just the perfect house, had everything we wanted, and he got a great deal for us. So we've been here now. We moved in on Christmas Day, 2015. So we're coming up on 5 years now.
Oh, yeah, we moved here in 2017, July.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
I love it here.
Yeah.
I love the roll in from the canyon.
Yeah.
I love the marine layer that comes in. It's like a little slice of heaven. Even from here to your office in Lindero can be like a 8-degree difference.
It can. Yeah, I was just going to say I love that we're right on the edge of the drop down into Camarillo, and you get that ocean breeze that comes up, and
it's so nice.
We're always 10 degrees cooler than my office typically. So
what is your role at Guitar Center now then?
I'm the director of the simple one is director of drums.
Oh, okay.
Anything drum related. My actual title is director of merchandising for drums and percussion, but it's a lot more than just merchandising. We're involved in the marketing, all of our promotions, our inventory. So anything drum related within any of those categories, whether it's drum sets or cymbals or heads or sticks or hand percussion, electronic drum sets, anything that's drum related falls to me. And
What kind of cymbals do you play?
Sabian.
Sabian?
Yeah, I've been a Sabian endorsee since 2006.
I like the AAXs a lot.
Yeah.
I like them. I played 2002 Paistes mostly.
Yeah, those classics.
And I had the Turkish ones for a long time, but they broke real easy. They were not built to be played by a punk rock drummer.
Right.
So I went through them a lot. A lot of times on the road, arriving at a club and there's a cymbal waiting there for me. They were very good about supporting me, but I definitely went through a lot of their cymbals. But the
I think they're
Paistes,
still around.
I remember